Hello and welcome back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife, and I am super enthusiastic to share the second installment of our panel episode with you guys. Again, my co-hosts for this episode are Erika and Maria. They joined me in part one, and so if you missed that, go back, check our conversation. We are still discussing marriage in this episode, and marriage takes effort, so we are explaining what we do in our personal marriages to keep things strong and working well. And I am really just grateful for their contributions and working with me on this project. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife. So in our last panel discussion, Erika and Maria joined me to talk about how we got into the military and how we met our husbands and all of that. This week, we are discussing what we do to keep our military marriages strong and just how you strengthen marriages in general. And Erika is a licensed life coach, and she is working on a degree in psychology to become a psychologist. Erika is a YouTuber, and she is worked for the Chaplains Association. And so she'll talk about a little bit of that, I think probably in the next panel episode, maybe some in this one. I'm really grateful for their contributions to this conversation. We've all had different military life experiences, and it really is great when we can get lots of different perspectives on the same topic, because my marriage is not going to be exactly like your marriage and vice versa. But there are some common denominators that can help everyone, and that's what we're trying to cover today. So we're going to just jump right into the conversation right now.
With that said, in that stresses come up in marriage, every marriage, but stressors come up in military marriages. I feel it's amplified. So, what are some things you have done in your marriage to keep it strong? Because we know there's going to be stressors. We know there's going to be things that are hard. How do you maintain your marriage on a regular basis? We'll start with Maria this time.
I read a lot of books. Well, I love marriage books. I love parenting books. And I always have. So that's been one of my things from when we very first got married. I set a goal to kind of read a marriage book and a family book at least probably twice a year, to read 2 of them a year, just to kind of keep myself fresh on ideas. But then as some other things got harder with teenagers and just other things, I found the life coaching, and my husband always says, you doing that training saved our marriage. Like, it was the best thing for it, because it helped me to let go of thinking he was in charge of how I felt and taking a lot of ownership for it. And so that was one of the things we've always made, when he's home, date night a priority, and tried to even make some sort of communication during deployments a priority, and doing what the other person asks. So I have this card, I don't know where, somewhere around, but it's just blank, because I told him during one of his deployments, I was like, you should send me a card. And it was a really rough deployment for him. And he's like, I don't have time for this crap. Why are you telling me to do this? So he got a card and he addressed it and he sent it. He didn't sign it, nothing. And I got it and I was so mad. Like, oh my heck, you sent me a card that says nothing? Like, really? You couldn't even take the time to write your name? And I was telling my sister about it. And my sister's a therapist. She goes, do you want me to jump in the pig pen with you, or do you want me to tell you what you really need to hear? And I'm like, well, I wanted you to jump in the pig pen, but fine, tell me what I need to hear. And she goes, he did exactly what you asked. You asked for a card and he sent it to you. And that was all the mental capacity that he had in that moment. How much does that boy love you that he did exactly what you asked? And so now I love that card. I'm like, oh yeah, he did exactly what I asked. He couldn't, that was all he had in that situation to give, maybe even a little bit more than he had, but yet he did it. And so I think sometimes giving of ourselves, even when it's a little bit more than we feel like we can give, but listening to what our spouse is asking and doing it. And I like that advice from my sister, like, and when I'm talking with other people, do you want me to jump in the pig pen? Are you looking for somebody to get down in there and complain with you, or are you wanting advice? And so I really like that too. Like, what are we looking for? We all need times where we just want someone to jump in the pig pen with us, and we want to just wallow in how bad and how hard it is. But then there's also those of us, okay, I'm ready to move forward. I'm ready for that help. And I think going to that counseling, finding those people, being willing to ask for that help when you're ready for it really helps to strengthen the marriage. And then doing things together. One of my favorite things, and I have it's on Facebook. It comes up as memories all the time. When my youngest was in second grade, her teacher was getting married, and one of the other teachers was her best friend. And so she taught as well, obviously. So she got all the little kids to make a little clip for the teacher with marriage advice. And my daughter's was like, your husband needs to be your best friend, and you need to go and you need to tell your kids that he is your best friend and go on lots of dates. That's what my parents do. And I think that's kind of one of my favorites. Like, my kids know we're a team. We're best friends. We're going to support each other. What one says, the other one says. And if we have a disagreement, yeah, we can talk about it. But to our family, to our kids, it's a very united front. We're on the same page.
Yeah, that's huge. Being best friends. I had a military spouse friend who she's like, that's so cliche. People say that they're married to their best friend. I'm like, I am. And she's like, what? And I'm like, you're not? We were so confused. And it's okay to be from the other perspective. But then later she like came to me, she's like, I get it. I get it. You guys are best friends. She's like, that's not ours. And I'm like, and then I was thinking about it a few days later, and I'm like, oh, because like my husband just showed up. I was pregnant again. I feel like you're always pregnant, or at least I felt like I was always pregnant. Anyway, I was pregnant again. He showed up. I like, we got the kids to bed, and he just came with a bucket full of hot water and Epsom salts for me to soak my like swollen feet in. And I hadn't asked or anything. And then he starts massaging my feet. And I'm like, oh, this is the best friend part she doesn't get. Some guys just wouldn't massage your feet without asking. That's the best friend part. So yeah, I think that's awesome. That okay, Erika, how about you?
Oh, well, before, as we were jumping into this life, my mother-in-law and a bunch of my in-laws, Air Force network, military family, it seemed like all of them retired in the same place. They would give us a lot of advice on how to support each other, um, that it's a hard life, but it's rewarding to have patience. Um, and that was the biggest thing, is patience. As we grew, because when you're married, you're growing together. And when we left Okinawa and went to Georgia, that's when we really started diving deeper into our faith. Because in Okinawa, we kind of threw it to the wayside because of the depression, and I couldn't even leave the house. But when we got to the United States, it got a little better. And then we really started getting into deeper meanings of marriage. Now, we took it from the faith perspective. We've never been to marriage counseling, not yet, because I always say yet because you never know. And honestly, I would say it was the church that really helped us grow deeper into each other because we started learning deeper and different perspective on the meaning of marriage and how it just goes beyond what you see everywhere, the secular and very romanticized version. It's romance and happily ever afters. And at about the 9-year mark, we decided to renew our vows. Now, because of our circumstances when we were younger, we actually got married by a friend of the family in my parents' backyard. I didn't say my vows. The wedding was a disaster. Uh, it's something that you would find on like America's Funniest Home Videos. The fire department was going around the neighborhood doing the Santa Claus throwing candy, and word got out that there was a wedding going on behind one of the houses, and all you heard were the sirens right in the middle when I was supposed to take my vows. And I mean, it was just like a disaster. So about 9 years later, we decided let's renew our vows, but this time let's do it in the church. My dad wants to walk me down the aisle, but this is going to mark, you know, that we're growing deeper into our relationship. And that was a huge pivotal point in our marriage when we made that decision. And it was a beautiful wedding. I mean, we went as we could financially, could do it. And it was very nice. But for us, it was our faith, a lot of basically my in-laws. I really owe a lot to them, and the boomer generation of military family that just really took the time to sit me down when I was in my 20s, and kind of tell me, I remember my mother-in-law telling me once, you'll find out real quick which military wives are in it for the long run and which ones aren't. And I didn't quite understand what she meant at the time that she said it until several years down the road, especially when we were overseas. Then it started to click. The ones that were like the more, I guess, mature in it for the long haul. Then you had there was like another camp of military spots that we've all run into where it's just like crazy. And then I did surround myself with military spouses that were older than us. I don't know what it was that we'd always tended to gravitate to couples that were older, have been in a lot longer. And we loved hanging out with people that were older than us. And it was just the wisdom. And I always just took notes from those military spouses. And it was just a concerted choice, like I'm choosing my husband every day. And we made this choice together. And no one gets married, off to thinking that they're going to get divorced, So it's work. It's a constant choice that you are choosing your spouse, you're choosing marriage, and then with the military factor, you have this understanding that it's not just a job. It's so much more than just a career and a job. It is a lifestyle. It is a vocation. And I didn't have the right to find it offensive. It was a joint decision. I knew better than to get angry or jealous. That was off the table because I made the choice with him. And it took a lot of patience and I guess a lot of emotional maturity to just know when those times come up, deployments. Okay, you're going on deployment. We'll figure it out. You call when you call, you can write when you write, you'll email when you can. No news is good news. That's kind of how we grew up anyways. And I did not come from a military family. It's just kind of a running joke in the family that we have. it, yeah. And so I don't know. And I can't, I also have to say, I was an ROTC in high school, and I already knew a lot going into it previously from my high school years. And it's not like I just use it as a class to get an A on my report card. No, I put my all into our JROTC program. I wanted to join the military myself. I soaked it in like a sponge. I was on staff. I was on color guard. I was our color guard commander. I mean, I think what threw everything in the wrench was the pregnancy when I got pregnant my senior year of high school. But like the military mindset was in a way pre-built starting when I was like 14, 15 years old. Not really realizing I would be a spouse one day. I actually thought one day I'd be a service member. But God has a funny way of God's got an interesting sense of humor. Sorry. It's like was never the Air Force service member, but I got to enjoy Air Force life nonetheless, just not in the way I thought I would. um
I really appreciate the things that both of Erica and Maria were saying because marriage takes effort, it takes intentionality. And I think far too often people are like, oh, I fell out of love. Well, what were you doing to stay into love? Were you putting effort and intentionality into your marriage and your love? And dates are important. Being on the same page is important. Not blaming each other is important because we should be making decisions together. And I think that's what both of them were getting at. And I really like that because when we're making those decisions together, and we are on the same page and then things go wrong, instead of it being the blame game and it's, oh, this is your fault, or why did you decide that? I never liked that to begin with. We don't, we, you can skip that whole drama and go straight to, all right, how are we going to fix this? What do we have as options? How can we move forward? And it's really easy as a military spouse to get jealous of the amount of time our spouses spend in their job at work. Because if you look at it and break it down, quite frequently, my husband would leave the house around 6 in the morning and he would not be home until 6 in the evening. And sometimes he could come home for lunch or to shower in between PT and his work day, but that wasn't always a possibility. That's a 12-hour work day, people. That's insane. Very few other careers demand that on a regular basis. And that can put a lot of stress and strain on a marriage, especially a new marriage when you're not used to it and you're still getting adjusting to that. And so learning to be reliant, finding a network, which was said before, uh, you know, who can you rely on? Who can you get help from? But also not throwing pity parties. Choosing to get up each day, choosing to just do what you need to do. I'm so grateful for my kids because my kids have been my motivation to accomplish things and go see the world and get out of my shell and to not throw pity parties because I had to. I had little humans that I needed to take care of who I genuinely loved. And so, when my husband was deployed and gone for over a year, we would send care packages. And I would spend so much time thinking up these care packages and painting pictures with the kids and making things to put in these care packages. And the kids would get so excited about it. And it was a way we stayed close. Honestly, my husband's like, I'm fine. I really don't need the care packages. He's always received so much more mail than anyone he's ever been deployed with or on TDY with. Like he always just gets so much more stuff because that's part of how I survive. Like is coming up with these projects to do with the kids, especially when they were really little. And that became a fun thing to look forward to is making these for him. And sometimes I think we needed to make those packages for him more than he really needed the package. And that's okay. We have different needs. When the soldiers, our service members, have different needs than the spouses and the families do, and that's okay. But stopping, looking back, figuring out what each other needs, working on communication. I mentioned in the last episode that we did counseling, and largely it was to improve our communication skills, because I'm a firm believer everyone can always improve their communication skills, and communication is a great thing to work on. So those are some of the things that we wanted to talk about in this just episode with you guys in this wonderful panel. I am so grateful again for Erika and Marie and them sharing all of their wonderful life experience and knowledge. And please, if any of these things have helped you, I'm just grateful. Let us know if you are interested in being on this podcast. I love interviewing military spouses and letting them talk about the amazing things that they are accomplishing in their lives and things that they are doing to help support the military community. So please reach out to me. Let me know if you're a veteran and you'd like to talk about your military experience, what your transition was like, or what you're doing post-military, so that you can help out other veterans with ideas. Please, again, contact me. Or if you are someone who has resources that can benefit the military community, I'd love to hear from you. I am really excited for this opportunity to help bring people together in a community that can support, uplift, and encourage each other with positive resources that will genuinely make a difference in our lives. And with that, I just please like, subscribe, share. It helps with the algorithms. I know it's kind of an obnoxious thing to say all the time, but it makes a difference. And I appreciate all of you guys who are doing that, because it will help get these resources out to a wider audience and help more people. And that is the whole goal of this podcast, is to make a difference in the military community for the better. And that, like always, leads me into what I love to remind you and leave everyone with is, let's make this world a better place. Let's be the good we want to see in the world. As always, I am your host, Sam Wolf, and you've been listening to Life of a Military Wife.